Hi, in this video, we're going to be going over what to do when you're calling your qualified leads for business solutions. I've had this question come from several different people who are doing some business solutions here on our team. If you're not part of our team, that word may not mean a whole lot to you, or those two words may make sense, but not together. You may not know exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about business solutions, but we're part of an organization called Success Team, and that organization is part of a larger organization called Legal Shield. We have the opportunity to offer legal representation or legal benefits, legal access to attorneys, and identity theft protection through employers as an employee benefit. So when we talk about business solutions, one thing we're talking about is working with those employers out there to offer these two benefit programs to their employees. We also, when we talk about business solutions, are talking about offering legal resources to the businesses themselves, to small businesses, so they have access to attorneys for the business. Both those things are kind of encapsulated in business solutions, but today we're talking specifically about calling businesses to talk to a decision maker about scheduling a meeting to go over the employee benefit packages that we can offer. So we are going to be diving into that here in just a second. I want to make sure that anybody who's watching this that's interested in getting these kind of videos sent to you daily, make sure to subscribe and hit that little bell. If you're already a subscriber, or if you're not and you find this video valuable, make sure to hit the little thumbs up button. Feel free to post any comments with questions for future videos we can go over. And don't hesitate to reach out to me on Slack if you're already part of our team. If you're not part of our team, feel free to reach out to me either through the comments or send a message to me. I'd love to talk to you about what we do and see if this might be a good fit for you if you're looking for either a side income or looking for a new full-time focus for your income. We'd love to talk to people who keep their options open when it comes to diversifying their income. So we'd love to talk to you if that describes you. Here in a second, I'm going to jump into the content for today. But before I do that, I want to make sure to let you know that this is the first video of a few videos I'm going to be doing about business solutions. A lot of the videos on this channel to this point have been either focused more on the team building side or have been focused on just very specific questions that were coming in about certain things. We're still doing all those videos and going to continue to do that. But we had a series of questions come in that all pertain to business solutions. So I'm going to do several parts to those questions. If you are the person asking the questions, just know that there's going to be a few videos to this because I'm breaking it down into segments, and I'll describe that here in a second. So just stay tuned, keep on watching these videos, especially if you have any interest in doing business solutions, or if you're already doing it, then definitely this is going to pertain to you. Okay, so diving into the topics for today, basically what we're going to talk about is calling businesses who you have already qualified as a lead. And those words mean a lot of different things to a lot of different places. But what I'm talking about when I say a qualified lead, if you have access to our CMS system, that means they're in your qualified leads section. And, for anybody that's not part of our team, what I consider to be a lead is somebody who you can contact. That's a lead. It's just somebody who a name and their contact information. That's a lead. So a business can be a lead if I know the business's phone number and the name of the business. A qualified lead, though, is going to be a business where I know the contact information or some contact information for a specific person at that business that has some authority in the area that I want to talk to them about, and where I know approximately how many employees that business has. At least in the context of talking about employee benefit packages, that's going to be highly relevant. If a business only has one employee or doesn't have any employees, there's no way to qualify that business. So we need to know, roughly how many employees that business has, and we need to know the person who we need to talk to qualify that business as a qualified lead. So we're going to be going over what to say when you call those leads. Today's video, we're going to talk about, or this video, we're going to talk about the thing you say when you first dial the number and you talk to the person that answers the phone. Typically, that's not the person that you need to talk to. It's the person who screens the calls, or the gatekeeper, we'll call them a lot of times. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then in the subsequent video, we'll go over what to do when you actually get through to the person you need to talk to. And then we'll also have another video on how to schedule those meetings if you're scheduling them with somebody else on the team like me, using a Calendly link or something else. So back to this first video in that series of videos, what to say when you actually call and somebody answers at your qualified leads. Typically, that's going to be a gatekeeper of some sort, whether that's a secretary, administrative assistant, executive assistant. Sometimes if you call a small enough business, there's only one person that answers the calls, and that's the owner. Sometimes when you call a business, there's going to be a directory where you can find the person you're needing to call and get into them directly. But what we're talking about today is when somebody else other than the person you're calling for answers the phone. So when that happens, what we're needing to do is try to figure out how to get through the gatekeeper to the decision maker that we want to talk to. And there's lots of different ways to do that. If you go search on YouTube or anywhere else, Google, for that topic, you're going to have 100 different opinions on what's best. And there's some general kind of consensus on several different ways that seem to be among the best. But when it comes down to it, it's really highly personal to you. You know, if one way works really well, but it does not fit your personality, that's going to come through every time you try to do that. So you need to find the way that works best for you to get from the person who answers the phone to the person you actually want to talk to, the best way that works for you. And I can tell you 100% of the time that that's not going to involve having a script, like an exact script that you're saying to that gatekeeper, or even a memorized script. Now, you're going to start to form some patterns in what you say over time, because you're going to figure out some things that work best. But a lot of getting through that gatekeeper to the person you want to talk to is in listening. It's not necessarily in what you say, it's in what you hear when on the other end when you're talking to that person. There are some like kind of ways to organize the approach, and we'll talk about those here in just a second. But lesson number one is don't have a script. Don't script out exactly what you're going to say to the gatekeeper. Don't script out how you're going to sound to the gatekeeper. Definitely don't script the sound of your voice. When you talk to that gatekeeper, if you have a script, they're going to right away sense that. Even if it's a memorized script, even if you do a wonderful job of memorizing that script, when you interact with somebody in the real world using a script, a person can tell. And that person who can tell immediately thinks script, sales. And that gatekeeper's job is to filter out people who are trying to sell stuff. So you don't want to sound like you have a script in any way. And the best way to not sound like you have a script is to not have one. So there's a couple of different like general schools of thought when you're talking to the gatekeeper that work really well for not having any kind of script and trying to get through. And one of those schools of thought is to just sound authoritative, still courteous, but authoritative, and try to command that person into doing what you want, which is let them through the gatekeeper. So this is an approach that's like kind of, you find like Jordan Belfort or some of the other, very type A, alpha male, aggressive salespeople on YouTube that talk about the cold calling and getting through the gatekeeper, talk about their strategies. This is an approach that you'll find a lot of them advocating for, but it's basically you call up and you just very, very briefly state, exactly what you want. So an example of that would be if I called a business and somebody named James answered and I'm trying to get through to Christina, the way I would approach that is pretend the person's name is Christina Johnson that I want to talk to. If I was calling to try to talk to Christina Johnson and somebody named James answers, and they say, "Good morning, James. This is such and such business. This is James. How can I help you?" "Hi, James. This is Chris. Is Christina in?" So that method, that's like all that they would advocate doing when they first answer the phone. Just sound exactly like you're supposed to be calling that business and asking for Christina that very moment. And if you do that in an authoritative sounding way, and you just let that silence hang there, that person is in a position of trying to figure out, okay, should I go ahead and can I ask another question? I don't know if I should be asking another question, or should I just go ahead and buzz Christina? Should I go ahead and transfer this person to Christina? And a lot of gatekeepers will just end up buzzing Christina. Some won't, but a lot of them will. So that's a way that can work if it works for you and your personality and your tone. But it does take having that tone and personality of being in command of that situation and to sound like you're supposed to be calling, like you're already familiar to that person. Some variations on that might be to add the words "I'll hold" to the end of it. So, hey, James, it's Chris. Is Christina in? I'll hold. So like you're telling them, go ahead and put me on hold and buzz Christina. Now, sometimes, like I mentioned, the person won't just automatically transfer you, won't automatically buzz to Christina. They may come back and with a question, a follow-up question, who is this? Something like that. Or who may I tell her is calling? People like Jordan Belfort or some of the other similar personalities that you'll find out there will suggest that more is better or less is better, excuse me. In that situation, give as little information as you can and just put back into the frame that you are telling them what they need to do and they need to do it. And so, that follow up to that would be something like, it's Chris. She'll know who it is. I'll hold. And that's that approach. And you just keep with that same mindset. Anything that comes back, you're just reframing it as you're basically telling that person what they need to do. That can be hard for somebody if that doesn't fit your personality. It can also be really easy for you if it does fit your personality or your tone. So, you have to kind of decide if that's an approach that will work best for you. And if it is, it's still going to take practice and it's going to take effort in trying it out and doing it. And you got to stick with it if that's the approach you want to take, because those first few people are going to still sense a weakness behind the shield you're putting up. They're gonna sense that you're a little bit uncomfortable in your skin the first few times you do that, unless it's just old hat to you. So you have to do it over and over again until it just is natural. But that's going to be the case for any type of approach you use in these calls. But that's one school of thought. It's the kind of just authoritative approach that you want to take with your calls, and that can be pretty simple once you get the hang of doing that when you call. Another or the other school of thought is, instead of trying to sound authoritative, to try to sound like you're in need of help. And what's going on with these two things is the gatekeeper that's answering the phone. They've either been trained formally or informally in what they need to do in their job, which is to classify people into buckets, and then the ones that are not supposed to be on the phone, not supposed to be tying up the phone line, get them off the phone as quickly as possible. And the people that are supposed to be there, let them be there or get them through to the person they're needing to talk to. So those kind of buckets, you could put them really into three different categories. One category would be a person who has an appointment, who's supposed to be calling that moment. All they need to do is identify who they are, that you see them on a piece of paper. That's a person who's supposed to be on the phone right then. Another category besides that would be a person who has got something to sell. That's somebody who shouldn't be on the phone right then. That's somebody who needs to get permission to call. So gatekeepers want to identify people into one of those two buckets, or the third bucket, which is people who maybe don't have an appointment, but it's okay for them to be calling. So with that first approach we're talking about, you end up in that third bucket because you sound authoritative. With this second approach, or schools of approaches, you still are ending up in that third bucket. And that's people who are needing some help, needing the assistance of the person that they're talking to. So what happens is you're triggering that gatekeeper into being in more of a customer service type of approach to that call than just purely a switchboard operator. And most people who are gatekeepers at companies do have some customer service functions to what they do as well. So it's going to be natural for them to click over into that mode if you can say the right words to get them in that mode. And if you want to take more of that approach, you just straight up say, I'm hoping you can help me out, you know, and you, the way to introduce this when James answers the phone. So James says, good morning. This is such and such company. This is James. How can I help you? You say, oh, hi, James. This is Chris. And when I do that, and I just say that part and then just have a brief pause, I'm starting to sound like a customer. I'm trying to sound like somebody who James is like maybe trying to recollect who's Chris, who's this that I'm talking to. They're trying to think for a second. And then you say, I'm hoping you can help me out. Now that James is really thinking, okay, this is maybe a customer or somebody like I can let my guard down. It's not necessarily sounding like a sales call anymore. It's not sounding like somebody who has an appointment scheduled, but it's not sounding like somebody that I need to like get away from right away. The one very critical aspect in this is we don't want to say, how are you doing? Because that's something that a lot of like amateur salespeople do when they first call businesses is they start trying to like develop some rapport with the receptionist immediately by saying things like, how are you doing? How's your day going? Chit chatting. Those receptionists or gatekeepers, they're often very busy and they don't want to talk about how they're doing that day with everybody that calls. So if you start doing that, they're going to flag that call immediately as somebody who's in that sales bucket unless they recognize your voice right away or have some other reason to put you in one of the other categories. So don't fall into that trap, but just jump right into, I'm hoping you can help me out. And then if you are trying to track down a person who you actually know the name of, so it's a qualified lead, sometimes the follow-up to that is by actually trying to ask them to tell you who the person is you need to talk to, even though you already know who you need to talk to. Sometimes the better approach depends on your personality and the business and the person that you're talking to and what you hear in their voice about their willingness to help you. Sometimes a better approach is to just be straight up about who you're needing to talk to and trying to find the best way to talk to them. But that's going to fall back on your listening skills and trying to gauge like how does this person sound as I'm interacting with them. One way of doing it is if you are working with leads that are all local to you, to say I'm a small business owner here in town and I'm just really excited, James, to get to talk to some of the other business owners and key people in the community here as I'm getting started in business. I was thinking about stopping by there here later this week and was hoping to talk to the person who handles your HR, or was hoping to talk to the person who is in charge over there, or the owner. Could you tell me who I should ask for if I stop by? Now that right there sounds very innocuous, like it's not going to harm James in any way to give that information. Doesn't sound like I'm doing anything wrong to give that information of who that is. And it's oftentimes publicly available information to answer that question anyway. So the person being in the helper mind says like, there's no risk in me helping in this way. So they are very likely to just tell you who it is. And if you already know the person's name, that's okay. You can still use this method. But once they say that name of that person or whatever name they say, if you're using this method, then you immediately reframe to asking to talk to them. So James says, oh yeah, you'd probably want to ask for Christina if you do that. And you say, great, Christina, is she in? And then now James is in a position of thinking, okay, do I need to pass this person through to Christina, or this gentleman's already told me some information about why he's calling. So do I ask more information? It's kind of a weird position then that James is in, that a lot of times he resolves by just buzzing Christina or putting you on hold and, figuring it out. So that approach can work really well. The alternative to asking that person who it is that you'd need to connect to, you just, tell them, look, I'm really needing to connect with Christina. It's about an email I just sent her. earlier this week, or only say that if you've actually sent an email, or I'm really needing to connect with Christina, and I've been struggling to find the best times to call. Could you tell me when the best time to call and talk to Christina was, or is she by chance available right now? When you are working with that person, showing that you're trying to do whatever you can to make this connection possible, and you're asking for their help, there's a good chance that they're going to want to help you out by doing something. Maybe that's just giving you some more info. Maybe that's, hey, I'll take down your information and then let her know. You don't want that to be the ultimate result of the call, but that's a step in the right direction. So whether you're taking the approach of asking who it is I need to connect to and then just switching gears immediately to asking for that person, or stating by name who it is you're looking for and just trying to figure out the best times to reach out to them, best times to talk to them. Are they possibly available now? You're coming in kind of in a way that doesn't seem too imposing. And so it's easy for them to give information to you. And once you have that additional information that they feel comfortable volunteering to you, once they've done something to help you, that person's much more likely to help you again. So get them to help you once, there's more of a chance that they're going to help you again with something additional. And a lot of times that additional thing is connecting with the person you want to talk to. So, oh yeah, she generally mornings seem to be better. She's kind of in and out of her office a lot in the afternoons, or she doesn't typically work on Fridays. So make sure you're calling on, Monday to Thursday, or, they'll give you something. Or, she's really hard to track down. Why don't I just take down your information and I'll have her reach out to you? That's still giving you something. Now is the time for the ask of that person for the second thing, which is going to be talking to the person. And, if you've already asked in the first part of the question, is she by chance available now? And the answer is no, then obviously you don't ask, well, can you connect me to her anyway? You want to ask for something else, which oftentimes might be another piece of missing information that you have on qualifying that lead, like their direct email number, direct phone number, or the person who can schedule you for some time with her, like an assistant. Does she have an assistant? Does Christina have an assistant or somebody I can talk to about getting on her calendar? Find out some additional information from that, get a second help and listen. And a lot of times what you'll get back from somebody is more of a schedule. And this applies to both of these two things we're talking about when you're putting yourself in the bucket of somebody who needs help. So, sometimes what you'll get back from somebody is, well, she's, with customers right now. She's not going to be available. She's, she's on a meeting with somebody else right now, so it's not going to work. Whatever it is you get back, listen to that, and then suggest that you're going to call back at the end of that thing that they're saying is interrupting her from being able to talk to you right now. Suggest you can call back in an hour and say, okay, great. Well, it sounds like maybe if I called back in an hour, that'd be better. So I'll give you a call back at 2:00. Sound fair? And now that person's who's trying to help you is in a kind of a position where they need to confirm to you whether that's going to work or whether you need to call back at a different time, or maybe they'll try to reiterate gathering your information instead. But just keep at it and trying to show that you're going to keep pushing. You're not going to just put it in the ball in her court. You're going to make calls, and you're going to do it around whatever schedule you need to make sure that you two can connect until that person gives you enough information that you can make that call at the right time, and then make the calls, make the calls back. When James answers the next time you call at an hour later at 2:00, you just say, hey, James, it's Chris, or your name. Just call him back. Christina available now? And, they'll remember from your conversation earlier. And hopefully you won't have to get into too much information about why you're calling, which brings me to kind of two other important tips here to kind of wrap up this video. This isn't part of those two tips, but just to recap, you want to be into one approach is just sound authoritative. The other approach is sound like you're just needing a little bit of basic help. Well, either one of those approaches is going to get you into the right bucket, which is people who should be calling, just don't have an appointment. And you should have good results using either one of those methods, just depending on which personality fits you. The exact words of what you're saying don't matter near as much as just your tone and voice sounding appropriate for that method, whichever method it is you're choosing. And whether it's the authoritative or the person needing help, just have your tone and your voice sound like it matches up with that. And it's okay to, especially if you're a person needing help, it's okay to kind of stumble through stuff, because the person needing help probably is going to stumble through stuff. That's okay. So those other two important tips, we talked about an important tip number one just a little bit ago. And, important tip number two is important tip number one, to recap, was don't script your voice or script your words if you can avoid it. Important tip number two is going to be don't pitch at all to the person who's answering the phone. That gatekeeper, you do not want to pitch to them no matter what. Don't pitch to them. And important tip number three is don't lie, because there's a decent chance you're going to have to interact with that person again, with that gatekeeper. And you don't want to set up yourself for bad interactions in the future if you try to lie to get through the gatekeeper. So make sure that you're not saying anything it's lying. Don't ever try to pitch to that person that's answering the phone. You don't need to get into any kind of detail whatsoever with why you're calling. And we can go over some of the objections and questions and stuff that gatekeepers have in a subsequent video, but you'll get those questions and you might have to fumble through them a little bit to figure out a way to not lie, not pitch, and just kind of maintain your frame of mind of you're just needing some help and figuring out how to get in contact with her. But once you get some of those questions, make sure to let me know, and we can do videos on specific questions and how those are addressed. Also watch here, because like I said, there's going to be more parts to this video about what you do when you actually get through to that person, about scheduling and how to use the scheduling features that we have available. But also we can go over some of the questions you get back or some of the objections you get back, and we can just address those in general on these videos. But it's all about maintaining that frame that you had when you first made the call. You'll establish a little bit of credibility in the first case just by your tone of voice. And the second one, you maintain that tone. You can also develop a little bit of rapport even with the person as they're helping you. People, I think it was Einstein or some famous person a long time ago said, the best way to get somebody to help you with something is to get them to help you with something else. You don't make friends by lending a book to somebody. You make friends by getting them to lend a book to you. And that's kind of the approach there with asking for some help and asking for something very basic that's going to be non-harmful to them to give to you, because they're helping you out in some way that establishes in their mind that they want to help you out, and you'll have a lot better success at getting through. So hopefully this video is helpful. Let me know either in Slack or in the comments. And like I said, we'll go over some of the common objections and questions you get in those two different approaches. We can do that in a follow-up video. Look forward to hearing your results, and we'll talk to you again soon.